Hi, I'm Geoffrey Semaganda, and I'm back to answer another question. And this question came from Michael. Michael was asking, why should he buy a property here in the UK when he's actually planning to go back home? Why shouldn't his investment be used to invest and buy property at home? Because that's what all his friends are doing. And they hear me talking about, creating multiple streams of income and investing in real estate here in the UK. Well, first of all, Michael, it's a fantastic question, and this is the question I think many people will find this answer very useful. And maybe so many of you wanted to ask the question but didn't have the guts to ask this. Let me ask you a question, Michael. How long have you been living in this country? Well, I remember in 1995 when I was introduced the concept of investing in real estate. The government at the time was offering a discounted price from those people who lived in the council housing, in government housing, at a discount up to 50%, and in some cases about 70% for those who had the right to buy those properties. And I remember those people saying in those days, almost 15, 16 years ago now, people used to say, I really don't want to get a mortgage, I don't want to invest in a property here because I'm going back home. Those people are still here today. Okay, 15 years later, they're still here. But this is not the point. Michael, first of all, if you say you're going back home, I hope you're going back home tomorrow. But if you're not going back home tomorrow, then I need to give you a reason why do you invest in real estate in the first place. I talk about how to create multiple streams of income. One, the first investment you need to make has to be in yourself. And two, create multiple streams of income and information, internet technology, real estate, business systems, and most importantly, invest in other companies like the stock market. And the final part, learn to protect everything you worked for, because so many people were rich yesterday and poor today. So wealth and financial protection is key. But let's go back to the question, because the problem we face is that we send our kids to school, or we go to school, but the school teaches us nothing when it comes to wealth creation strategies. Let me ask you a question. Why should we invest in real estate in the first place? The reason you invest in real estate, not because you're buying a house to live in, because it's an investment. The word is investment. Any investment you make, you need to see the best return on the money you invest. The more return on your investment you get, the quicker you will become financially secure. Okay, so let's go back to the reason. Now, in order for you to be wealthy, you need to use what they call OPM. Other people's money. Understand that. OPM, other people's money. Now, some people who don't have financial literacy, they're thinking, whoa, Geoffrey, doesn't sound very nice. Other people's money, that's not nice. Well, that's how the world works. That's how the financial system works. All companies go out there to look for capital. Either you get money from your family, from your friends, from the bank, from investment banks, of investors, or private angels who basically prepare to like your idea and invest in you. The challenge is most people don't have the opportunity or the chance to get investment from anywhere, because if you wanted to go on holiday, nobody's going to lend you money for that. If you wanted to go and take your kids take your kids to school, well, very few companies will give you money for that, apart from the kids are going to take the loans for themselves. So if you want to set up a business as a startup company, you know how difficult, you can't get money from the bank. However, if you wanted to buy a house, now the bank will give you the money. Why? Because banks are not in the business of losing money. So they want to make sure you have an asset, okay, or you have security. And when you're buying a house, that is security, which means that even if you can't pay for it, they can always come and take the house away from you and can be able to recover their money back. That's why, let me explain, that's why they never put all the money in it. So let's take two examples. One, let's think of that you're going to buy £100,000 worth of property. Now, this is just for example point of view, to keep the numbers a little easier. It works very differently. It's not exactly as simple as black and white as I'm going to explain it, but I want you to get the concept. So, let's imagine buying £100,000 worth of property. Okay, the basic common sense in buying anything in life, you never ever buy anything retail. You always have to negotiate yourself to a lower price. For instance, if the property is worth £100,000, you should never pay £100,000. You should pay at least £90,000, for that property. You should never pay more than that. Always negotiate yourself at least at 10% of the value of whatever that is you're trying to buy, especially in real estate. How do you do that? Well, it's a long training program and I can teach you that, but right now to give you an idea, it's called finding a motivated seller. A motivated seller is somebody who's trying to sell as fast as possible. Why? Because maybe they're divorcing each other with his wife or husband, or maybe they're moving to a bigger house, or they can't pay the mortgage and the bank want to take the house away from them. Those people really, for whatever the reason, so many reasons why people sell their houses, but one of those reasons will be the reason why you can find a cheaper way to negotiate yourself into a better deal. In this particular case, I want you to get a piece of paper and a pen and write this down. If a property is worth £100,000, never pay £100,000 for it. You pay £90,000, which means if you finish that transaction, what have you done already? You already made £10,000 by negotiating that. But I'm sure you're asking yourself a simple question. Come on, Geoffrey, where on earth am I going to find £90,000? Now, that's where living in the West is an advantage for you as to those people in the same position as you are who live in developing countries. In developed countries, there's what they call mortgage, property financing. Okay, property financing, and today it doesn't matter what people tell you. It still exists, it's still available, but you need, of course, to understand and learn from it. So you will go to the bank, you're looking to buy property worth £100,000, and remember you're paying £90,000. So £90,000. You go to the bank, and because you have an asset, you're buying an asset, you're not going on holiday, you're not setting a business where they're going to lose the money, they'll say to you, put some money in and we'll put the rest of the money in. And let me use a simple example. It could be more, it could be less, but let me use a 10% deposit. So imagine you're going to invest 10% of your money, so £90,000, 10% of £90,000 is £9,000. So you need to look for £9,000. There's other things like legal costs and so on and so forth, but for example point of view, let's imagine you're trying to find £9,000 to buy property worth how much? £100,000. Now, £9,000 is not enough. Who's going to give you the rest of the money? The bank. The bank will give you the money. Okay, how to get the money from the bank is another training. You need to have a good credit. You need to convince the banks you'll be able to be disciplined enough to be able to pay for it. Either you're going to pay from your own income or you're going to put a tenant in the property to pay for it. But that's a different training. Let me just go back to the principle. Property worth £100,000, stick to that. We're going to pay for it. How much are you going to pay for it? Yes, you're right. £90,000. For the £90,000, are we going to find £90,000 to buy the property? No. We're going to find only 10% of that, which is £9,000. And who's going to come up with the £81,000 would be the bank. And if you live in the Western world where the mortgage interest rate is so low, it's as low as 3% in some promotions, up to 5%, 6% if you have bad credit. So you can basically borrow that money, 81,000 plus your 9,000. Now you have 90,000 to go and buy that property. The day you finish that transaction, okay, you now already made £10,000 day one. Understand this. You make money in real estate the day you buy, not hoping it will go up in value, but I'm going to cover that in a second. Of course you buy real estate because it's going to go back up. It's going to go up in value. Why? Because, land doesn't expand. It don't make land. Britain, this country will never expand. It will never be any bigger. But there will be more people on the planet tomorrow, or in Britain tomorrow, than they are today, which means the demand of real estate will always going to go up. Actually, figure shows that every 10 years, property go up between 50 to 100% in different markets, in different areas. But if you buy right, if you take that as an example, every 10 years, property goes up by 100%. Just imagine every 20 years, property went up by 100%. It doesn't matter. Let me go back to the point. Now you own a property. We invested how much? £9,000. Who gave you the rest of the money? The bank. Why? Because you have a job, you have a tenant who's going to be in that particular property to pay for the mortgage. That's what the bank wants to know. Now, is that simple as that? No. But those are the principles. Now, you control an asset worth £100,000, and how much did you put down? 9,000. What's the mortgage? What's the loan from the bank? 81,000. The property is worth 100,000. The loan from the bank, 81,000. What's the difference between 81,000 and 100,000? 19,000 pounds. So all of a sudden, from day one, you made pounds, just because you used other people's money. You used bank money to invest. So you used the concept called leverage. You used other people's money to earn 10% to make money on a huge asset, as for you to go and work every day to earn this money yourself. Now, if that happened to you and from day one you made 10,000 pounds, what's the return on your investment from day one? 111%. Do you hear me, people? 111% return on your money from day one. Now, let's again use the same example. Let's imagine the property went up by 10% per year. Again, it's not doing that at this current moment, but things will go back up. We'll go back, property will start go back up in value as time goes on. But for example's sake, this is just for training purposes. Let's imagine the property went up by 10%. How much have you made? Now the property was worth 100,000 from the day one you bought it. Now it's worth 110,000 pounds. Okay? Did your mortgage go up? No, your mortgage is still 81,000. Now, of course, you're paying the interest rate every month. Now, either you pay that yourself because you live in the house, or you find a tenant who live in that house who to pay that interest on your behalf. So the mortgage is being paid. Now the property going up by 10%. Now the whole value of that property is 110,000 pounds. What's the mortgage? It's still 81,000 pounds. What's the difference between 81,000 and 110,000? 29,000 pounds. How long does it take you? That could be in 1 year, it could be in 2 years. But the point is, you've been leveraging on other people's money. Now, all of a sudden, you now have a value of 29,000 pounds. If you go that over 10 years, you could end up owning that property, right? Or have generated almost 100,000 pounds in value. I really hope you're getting this. Don't miss this basic concept, because I keep assuming that people understand this, but most people actually don't. You buy real estate because it's the best place, it's the only place for an average person who have a job can use to leverage on other people's money to become wealthy. One property over 10 years could double its value, which means if you bought it, that person who owned that property you live in, if you're paying rent right now, he's using your money to pay the interest rate or to pay the mortgage. Now, you're buying a house for who? For someone else. Is that what you want to do? I bet no. But let's go back to the question. Should I invest here or should I invest back at home? Now, whether you live in Asia or you live in Africa, wherever you live, if they don't have the similar financial structure that you have here, then take advantage of the opportunity you have here. And I'm going to deal with the issue of building a house at home in a second. But let's imagine you did the same thing. You wanted to buy 100,000 pounds worth of property in Africa or wherever you come from. Because there isn't a mortgage system, and even if there is a mortgage system, the interest rate is so high, minimum 15%. I've seen interest rate at 25% in some countries in Africa. So why would you want to do that? So let's imagine you wanted to buy a house worth 100,000 pounds. For example, want to use the like for like, somewhere in Africa. Because there isn't a mortgage system, you're going to have to find 100,000 pounds of your own cash to buy that house. Is it the same? No, it's not. Because if that property also goes up by 10%, you make, how much you make? You invested 100,000 pounds, property went up by 10%, so it's now worth 110,000 pounds. How much have you made? 10,000 pounds. What's the return on your investment? You invested 100,000, you made 10,000. What's the return on your investment? 10%. You invested 100,000, you made 10% return on your money. In the markets where the system doesn't exist, that allows you to leverage. If you invested that money in the West, where there's a better mortgage system, and you learn to invest. Why? Get me right here. Don't just assume just go and buy a house. You're going to have to invest in knowledge and understanding how to invest in real estate. That's key. But if you take the same principle and say if you invested the same amount of money here in the West, you'll buy 10 properties. If you take the example I just gave you. You buy 10 properties as to buy one. Which means 10 properties, if you put down 10%, the bank will put in what? We just gave an example. 900,000. Now you control £1 million worth of property. If they go up by 10%, you make £100,000 return on your investment. What did you put in? 100,000. What's your return? 100,000. What's the return on your investment? 100%. But if you use the model I've just described, that every time you buy a real estate, make sure you buy at a discount. So that could be 111% return on your investment. Please understand, you buy real estate because you want to make more money, not because you want to live in that house. Now, should you go and build a property at home? Of course, because if you don't build a property at home, your mother might disown you. So make the money from that property and then take the cash you've made and go and invest at home. Now, whether that works out or doesn't work out, it doesn't matter because you already have another income coming through here. The other point why I should invest in real estate is because savings is not easy for an average person. Most people, they can't save. They spend every penny they make. But they will do whatever they can to pay the rent or the mortgage of a house where they live in. So yes, is it easy to buy a house? No, it's not, because you need to find a deposit. But you don't have to start from 100 or 200 or 300 £1 million property. You can start at a £50,000 property. The same principle apply. Just start with what you can. Do not make a mistake. Live in the West, physically, but your mind operates as if you live in Africa. You have to invest here first, make the return, because the return is going to be 100%, 50%. Anything that gives you 20% return in a year on investment will make you wealthy in 20 years. Anything that does not make you that kind of return, you will never be wealthy. Let's face it. It's just never going to happen. And go and pray that the Lord will fix it for you. It's never going to happen. You have to take responsibility and invest your money where your mouth is. You live in a place where either you're paying a mortgage or you're paying rent. You're buying a house either for you or someone else's house. Other people's reasons where I don't like to, you're gonna take you 20 years to buy a house, 25 years to buy a house. The question I'm asking you, are you hoping to die in 5 years? Because if you're not, if you plan to be here 20 years from now, if you're going to be here 20 years from now, then you might as well start buying your own what? Your own house. Because the average renter will have, around £10,000 in savings over 40 years of work. An average homeowner will have £100,000 in home value over 40 years of work. Now, if you're an average person, if you ignore real estate investment, you've reduced your ability to achieve financial security by 60%. And I'm being generous here. So, don't make a mistake. Go and study why you should invest in real estate. Yes, we need to invest at home. But one of the reasons most of us who live in the West, we came for economic reason. We came to make money, to become more wealthier, so that we can take the investment, the knowledge back home. The money we're sending at home is not enough. I gave you a simple basic example. If £10,000 can make you £10,000 a year in real estate, how much more can you send home? How much wealth can you create? Then you can go and not only in 5-10 years have generated a realistically $1 million in real estate, £1 million in real estate, which you can't do in other environments, in other areas. So real estate is one of the major investment strategies you can't afford to ignore. I really hope you got this, but I believe it's a bigger subject than what I've just tried to simplify it. So if you have any question, more than welcome to inbox me or you email me, and I'm more than happy to give you one-to-one to explain to you why, because this is such an important, critical issue. A lot of our brothers and sisters live here now, whether they live in the West, and they're still not homeowners. And their argument is, because I'm going back home. And you ask them, how long have you been in the country? 15 years, 20 years, 5 years, 6 years. How come you have less? Because they can't. Even if when they leave, they go home, 1 week later they want to come back to the West. Then why should you invest here? Because the systems are here, are designed to help you be wealthy. The opportunities you're sitting on right now are much, much more than those who live at home. If we came here to be wealthy, then let's be wealthy. Let's generate an income using the system that exists here that we don't have at home. But let's say you decide to go and invest at home. The same rules apply. You should go for the best return on your investment. You shouldn't be emotionally attached to a house or a business. It's just simple, basic investment. In some cases, you might find the house you can afford is up north, where you can find a house worth 50,000, 60,000 pounds. You don't have to move up north. You stay renting wherever you are and put a tenant in that property up north. And that's the beginning. Start slowly but surely. I guarantee you'll be glad that you did. If you're watching this video and you didn't buy a house 10 years ago, the house you live in, the chances are, is worth 3 times or twice the amount what it used to be worth 10 years ago. For those who live in the house you lived in for the last 20 years, I'm sure it's worth 4 times the amount. So whoever you're paying rent is the one benefiting. Property will double in value every 10 to 20 years. Now, if you're too old and you're hoping you're going to die in 5 years, wouldn't it be a good idea to leave the property for your family and your kids? Whatever your excuse is, I believe my job to take it away from you. My job is to take away the opportunity of saying that you did not know. I'm more than happy to take your questions if you have any, but this is a key subject. I hope I can summarize this. Always use other people's money when possible. And the only area where you can when you can use other people's money is real estate. You get money from the bank putting the most of the money, and you put in some of the money. When the property value goes up, you benefit from that. Put a tenant in the property if you can't afford to pay the mortgage, and let them pay the mortgage on your behalf. Should you buy property speculating or property going up in value? No. So learn how to make money from day one. And then take the equity, take the money out of that property, and then go and build a house that you want and you deserve at home. But I'll still insist, if you're not going to live at home, do not build a house as if you're going to live there. Build an investment house. But make sure the numbers adds up. Make sure the return on investment will be the same investment you're going to get here. At the end of the day, all the wealth we generate to go back to our family and friends. But you need to have the wealth. You're going to run out of energy one day and you can't work as hard as you work today. The only thing you have left after 20, 40 years of work is going to be the house. For those who really understand this, I'll suggest you need to own at least 5 properties. 1 to live in, 4 to rent. Over 10, 15, 20 years, they'll all be paid off. Or they'll all have doubled in their values, which means that you can sell 3 and keep 2 outright. That'll be enough money to help you, support you in your old age. Those who want to build a serious portfolio, you can build 100, 200 properties in this country or anywhere. You just need to understand the game. Learn how it's done. It's not that complicated to do. But like anything else, you need to invest in yourself, in the knowledge of understanding how to do it. If you manage to get some basic understanding, please get back to me. I'm happy to help you out, to give more information, my additional knowledge on the subject. But do not make a mistake and ignore investing in real estate. Now, for those who live here, who also don't own a property, because it's not about those who live in Africa or live in different countries. Even those who live here, who are, British people, well, you have to own your own property. And for the first time back, there's so many schemes out there you can go and access to. Speak to an advisor. Speak to a financial specialist. He will give you, look at your situation where you are and see how you can go about it. If you can't buy a house today, have a plan to be able to be in a position to have a deposit of buying a house tomorrow. If you can't buy it yourself, find a partner and get together and do your first investment. And then make money there, and then everybody can go their own way. I thank you for asking the question. It's a very bigger subject. It's not as simple as I've made it, but in principle, it's that simple. We will teach you strategies and idea how to go about this, but you have to want to do it. Do not make a mistake and go and buy a house without understanding, learning how and why. But remember, it's an investment. Always look for the best return on investment before you make any investment. Don't be emotionally attached, because business doesn't care. You need to look only from business purposes. Let's get wealthy and let's send money home in bigger numbers. That way, we can become real estate investors here, we can take the same principle and become real estate developers over there, because the need of demand for real estate in those countries, it's massive. But you're not going to become an investor if you don't understand at least the basic principles that we have here. I hope that basically helps. Until next time, you take care. God bless. Bye-bye for now.